Hello, and welcome to the Creative Adventure Podcast, an artist's guide to modern freelancing. Today, we're doing something a little different. For those of you who are listening, it's not going to be all that different, but if you're watching on video, we have a little time lapse of some thumbnailing and sketching that I've been doing. And this kind of ties into today's topic, which we are talking about how to observe our own behaviors and perhaps reframe or redirect our energy towards things that might be more fulfilling for us in the long run. So, if you are like most people in the modern age, our phones, our habits, tend to be living online. We tend to be surrounded by content. There's the stress of the dirty word that begins with A and ends in I, especially for those of us who are artists. And there's also the constant temptation of many things in our just modern social environment that are highly addictive, even beyond social media, video games and TV. And let me just come out of the gate and say that I am not demonizing any of those things. I know that I have over 2 years of active played time on World of Warcraft, probably closer to three, between three characters. I very much love the concept of diving into a TV show and binging it all in a weekend. I love going out to all you can eat restaurants on occasion when it serves my goals, etc. But I also know that there are certain behaviors and habits for me that are not useful in the long run, and things that I've done to change my behaviors and reframe how I look at some of the things that I enjoy doing because they are indulgences, and some of the things that are enjoying but also very fulfilling in the long run. So, in today's episode, we're going to be talking about some of the strategies that I use to help reframe how I spend more time doing art, which is why we're watching some of the thumbnail content here. So, what have I been doing lately? Obviously, I'm drawing a little bit more. I'll throw a couple of the other thumbnails up on the screen if you're curious as to the things I've been working on. But the biggest thing when it comes to changing and reframing our behaviors is not brute force. It's not callousness. It is not punishing ourselves when we do things that may not be exactly what we want to. How many times have you heard the story, and including myself as someone who has undergone weight loss journeys, fitness transformation, whatever you want to call it, where maybe I messed up on my diet, or how many times have you heard someone, they start a new goal, and after a couple days or weeks they tend to beat themselves up about it. We cannot do that. So the first thing I want to reference is the book Do Hard Things by Steve Magness. And effectively, we've been looking at toughness incorrectly, or that's how Steve Magness, describes it in the book. There are so many stories of coaches, mentors, teachers, senseis, whatever you want to call it, who use aggression, callousness, this false sense of masculinity to induce the correct behavior. Running laps, doing push ups, grinding into the evening, unsustainable practices. And that doesn't foster discipline, that fosters fear. And it fosters the hyper aggressive punishing approach to supporting and reinforcing a good behavior does not support long term sustainable habits that will bring us joy in the long run. Highly recommend that book. It has been very useful for me over the last year. But instead, it's always wise to take moments of compassion and grace for ourselves, and that's something that I personally am working on and struggling with, to understand what is right for us. So the first thing that I want us to take away is that if there's a behavior that or a goal that we want to be doing, it's never ever going to be useful to beat ourselves up over not doing it. The best thing we can do is accept what we've done, forget what we've done in the past, use it as a learning experience, but then identify where we are in the present and see what we can do now. So the second book I'm going to reference with this is The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, eliminating shoulds. I should have done that art. I should have eaten better. I should have gone to the gym. It's like, that's okay. You didn't. I didn't. Sometimes I miss a gym session, and I'm very adamant about my gym session stuff. If you've been following me for a little while now, you'll know that's very important to me. But sometimes it's like, you know what? I think working on my art, working on my YouTube channel is going to be more useful in the long run. I accept what has happened in the past and understand what I need right now. So, how does the power of now apply to this and changing and reframing our behaviors? It's acceptance. It's learning to understand what is right for us in the present moment. And that present moment is going to often be surrounded by so many things in our social environment that may be tempting. I love video games. I love social media. I love Instagram. I actually have to use a handful of strategies and tricks to get me off of my phone, which we'll get to in a little bit. But it's understanding what our natural first impulse is. So the presence part comes down to understanding what is going to be right for us right now. And a lot of that actually doesn't come down to the brute force reinforcing some callous behavior that we're trying to grow into. It's about one, creating good habits that are inevitable and making bad habits impossible. Taking that from Atomic Habits from James Clear. So, long story short, we need to be able to first observe our behaviors without judgment. And again, going back to the Eckhart Tolle concepts and presence, whenever we have a moment where we may be bored, we may be anxious, we may be tempted to go to our phone. And again, I'm not immune to any of these things. I want to look at my phone immediately when I wake up in the morning. I sometimes throw my phone in the bathroom drawer because I'm like, I can't look at this. So the first step with reframing our behaviors is observing them. That's it. So it's like, okay, when are moments when I actually want to be looking at my phone? When are moments when I am encouraged to do something that's ultimately not going to be fulfilling in the long run? And then how do we redirect that energy into something more useful? So that's the key. It's the observation and then redirecting that energy. So let me give you some examples of the things that I have to go through, or I do go through, and I choose to reframe, and how I've been in reframing. The moments when I feel I observe that I want to be on my phone, I immediately go to Photoshop or Procreate, or I try and keep a pen with me at all times, and it's just like, I'm going to draw instead. It's going to be bad. And the problem with observing our behaviors and reframing that is there is a sense of ego that is tied to, okay, I'm not going to be on my phone, which it definitely feels good. It's going to feel amazing to watch a couple cat videos and then doom scroll into other political things that is not going to be useful to our mental health down the line. Instead, there's an ego component because it's like we know that the phone and the video games or whatever is going to be, it's going to make us feel good in the moment. And it's going to not feel super great when you get into like drawing something the first time, or maybe taking some photos, or reading a book, or going on a walk. But very rarely do people ever regret doing those things because they help create a sense of momentum and clarity of like what you should actually be doing. The ego is tied to that because when you first start drawing or when you first start exercising or stretching, it doesn't feel great. You have to work out the kinks. You have to warm up, so to speak. And the reason why we're watching some of these thumbnails and sketching is because some of the early sketches and thumbnails I did in the morning that you can see on the left side of the page, they weren't super great. I was like, I don't like this. And then I was like, oh, but then I had an idea. What if I inspire this by the Protoss from StarCraft? And then I found some reference, and I was like, oh my God, this feels so much better. I'm so much happier with these. But you don't get to that moment when you just try and bypass that with social media or whatever. You don't get to those moments of inspiration when you can't stomach being bad at something for like 5 minutes. But once you get past that suck, it is so much better and you feel so much gooder about yourself. We're going there into in correct grammar. But what I'm trying to say is being able to observe our own behaviors, and I have to observe myself a lot. Where it's like I want to reach for my phone. My typical habits are either going to be Instagram Reels or YouTube Shorts because I refuse to keep TikTok on my phone at this point, or going into some deep dive on something on Reddit I don't need to be consuming. The second I feel that impulse, I just observe. It's like, okay, hold on. Have I had water? Have I had food? Have I had coffee? How's my sleep been? And if like those things are checked, then I'm like, all right, let's redirect this towards drawing. That's why what you're watching right now. It's me doing some silly little sketches. So we talked about the past, ignoring the whatever past behaviors that we've done and using that as a learning experience. We talked about the present, being able to observe. What about the future? And the future is just being able to anticipate our own behaviors and habits and being able to, like I said, make good habits inevitable. So I will admit, I do use a couple strategies and physical tools to help me be off of my phone as much. The first is Brick. It is not an app. It is an app and a little device. I'm not sponsored by them, but I should talk to them at some point, maybe. And just being like, all right, this is the thing that's going to block me off of my phone. It's literally an app that just like gets you off of any time distracting app on your phone. So it's like blocking YouTube, Instagram, even my email, because sometimes that's something I can't be attached to. But it keeps the main important apps open. That includes, like, for me, it's Slack for work or being able to text people and call people. That's why it's called Brick. It's like this device is effectively a brick for the things that I would want to use little dopamine hits for. So, all that being said, why are you watching my thumbnail sketches and why am I sharing all of this? Well, in the modern age, with all this temptation and the dirty word that begins with an A and ends in I, it's really uncertain as to what the future is going to be like. And these apps, these time wasters, they don't ultimately fix the problem. They just make us feel good in the moment. So, what I wanted to share with this episode was it's I wanted to encourage my friends, my artists, colleagues, whoever you are, if you're listening to this, to it be okay with leaning into the hard thing just a little bit. And this reframing that I've been doing as of late is making me so much happier. Because if you think back to like 300 years ago, we didn't have social media. We didn't have TikTok and Instagram. So what did people do for fun? They probably spoke to people. They probably went outside. They probably went on a walk because you couldn't really do much else. So, with all of that, I want to leave you with a couple tips that I use to redirect and reframe my energy so I am drawing more and I am making more stuff. The first is find a way to make your bad habits impossible or very, very difficult. Create a lot of resistance to a point where it allows you to observe. And I will admit, like, Brick does have the ability for me to like just go to the device, which is why I keep the little device on my fridge in the other room. So it's like, okay, it gives me a moment to observe my behavior and my habit and not let the impulse take over immediately. The second thing I do is make it very easy for the things that I want to do. Make it very easy to do those things, whether it's drawing, modeling, etc. This is why Blender is literally one of the shortcuts on my start bar on my computer, or Photoshop is right there, and my iPad is always with me at this point, keeping a sketchbook and a pen with you, or something, like, always. And so many books that I've read on mental health is always just like, keep a little notebook with you. Like, make that the default. Make that the habit that you reach for. Another big thing is understanding not to punish yourself when it comes to leaning into some of the bad habits that are actually kind of fun, whether it's having an adult beverage or eating some food that may not make us feel great the next day, or binge watching a TV show or playing video games. Understanding when and how much of those things you actually need versus overindulging in them. So let me be reiterate, I have played significant amounts of World of Warcraft in my life. I also love picking up barbells. It's just a matter of figuring out what is an appropriate amount of volume of that activity that you can do sustainably, and do it in a way that is ultimately filling your cup without overflowing and overspilling. Now, what I'm not trying to say is we need to be productive at every single moment. So the last thing I want to say, and I do want to actually take this from a note from my sister who got it from her therapist. I was like, oh my God, that's just genius. And that is, if it is something that you are only doing just so you can post it on social media, is that actually you? Now, obviously, be like, what the heck, Jags? You're talking about your sketches. Why are you, like, you're posting it? Let me just say, the thumbnail sketches is definitely a little bit more visually interesting than just watching my face the entire time, which is why you get a little picture-in-picture. But also, I do think it does provide context, and my intention behind posting some of these thumbnails is not to share the flex on the fact that I'm doing these thumbnails, but it's almost more like I'm documenting my progress and process. So maybe one day I can go back and look at this and be like, wow, I think I've improved. So using social media as a tool for documenting rather than purely just for the quick little dopamine hits that we're looking for, that will always be more fulfilling in the long run. So understand and observing your own behaviors, like why are you doing something, and whether it's for social media clout or if it's actually because it's benefiting you as a person, observing that is very, very valuable as well. So this is a quick little episode talking about some of the things that I'm doing to reframe. I'm trying to redirect all of my not so great habits into stuff that is more fulfilling. And if you go back again 300 years, they didn't have social media, so they probably drew more, did other things. And now that we have so many ways to be creative, it seems foolish to not spend a little bit of time maybe being bad at something for a little while, so then maybe someday we can get good. So just to put a little bit of humanity behind this, the ways I am indulging in the things that I enjoy in my life is I'm still very much enjoying a lot of carbohydrates, baking a lot of bread as of late. I am playing a significant amount of Hearthstone. I spent a lot of time playing physical card games and board games. I was like, you know what, I'm going to try a digital card game for a while. And that's kind of been my new big thing that I'm spending some time, not wasting some time, spending some time. And I'm also playing a little bit of World of Warcraft. And I always try and do those things around people or with people, or do it in a way in which I can talk with people afterwards about it rather than just blindly, mindlessly over-consuming things that ultimately don't leave me fulfilled. And on top of that, I'm doing these little thumbnails and these little sketches because it's improving my design skills. Yes, I spent so much time behind a camera, but there's so much more to learn in art besides just filmmaking and motion graphics that ultimately I want to grow this into something. I want to grow into a much better artist, a more well-rounded artist, and drawing is helping with that. So I am choosing to redirect my energy towards concept art, towards these things because it ultimately brings me joy to the goals I have as someone who wants to make things. And I hope that you can take this podcast, take the message of redirecting and reframing some of the things that you are currently doing and maybe putting that energy towards something that is more meaningful. I hope you can do that. So we'll leave it there. As always, we'll end the episode with a dice roll. We have a dice roll, the nice D20. And we're going to just see how our next little reframe of our behaviors goes. That's a 17. That's pretty awesome. I'll take that. I'm going to be completely honest. I did re-record this episode and I rolled a nat 20 earlier. So we're rolling real good today. So thank you so much for taking the time to listen to the Creative Adventure podcast, and until next time, may the freelance dice forever roll in your favor. Take care.